Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, just near the English Channel, where we're holed up here trying to keep the sound going, the sound vibrating, the sound of Shabda Brahma, the transcendental sound of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and Bhagavad Gita, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Srila Prabhupada's magnificent transcendental ecstasies, his commentaries on all these scriptures, meant to purify the world, and it is purifying the world. We'll start one person at a time. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mahima Stotram from Sri Krishna Lila Stava by Srila Sanatana Goswami glorifies the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which we're reading now, and we will be reading for quite some time because it is a magnificent magnum opus of Srila Prabhupada. It goes like this. Sarva Shastravdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kali Dvandoditaditya Sri Krishna Varivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshudayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who is supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Manistadagamad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadhu sadhutadayin atini chochatakada hanamunchakadachin mam premnarit kantayokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've reached the 16th chapter of the first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, how Parīkṣit Maharaj greeted the age of Kali. We're beginning with text 8. As long as Yamaraj, who causes everyone's death, is present here, no one shall meet with death. The great sages have invited the controller of death, Yamaraj, who is the representative of the Lord. Living beings who are under his grip should take advantage of hearing the deathless nectar in the form of this narration of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Purport. Every human being dislikes meeting death. but he does not know how to get rid of death. The surest remedy for avoiding death is to accustom oneself to hearing the nectarian pastimes of the Lord as they are systematically narrated in the text of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It is advised herein, therefore, that any human being who desires freedom from death should take to this course of life as recommended by the rishis headed by Shonaka. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 9. Lazy human beings with paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping in the day, performing activities that are for naught. Lazy human beings with paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping and the day performing activities that are for naught. Purport. The less intelligent do not know the real value of the human form of life. The human form is a special gift of material nature in the course of her enforcing stringent laws of miseries upon the living being. It is a chance to achieve the highest boon of life, namely to get out of the entanglement of repeated birth and death. The intelligent take care of this important gift by strenuously endeavoring to get out of the entanglement. I'll read that again. The intelligent take care of this important gift by strenuously endeavoring to get out of the entanglement. But the less intelligent are lazy and unable to evaluate the gift of the human body. Instead of employing the energy of the human body to achieve liberation from material bondage, they become more interested in so-called economic development and work very hard throughout life simply for the sense enjoyment of the material body. Sense enjoyment is also allowed to the lower animals by the law of nature, and thus a human being is also destined to get a certain amount of sense enjoyment according to his past or present life. But one should definitely try to understand that sense enjoyment is not the ultimate goal of human life. Herein it is said that during the daytime one works for nothing, because the aim is nothing but sense enjoyment. We can particularly observe how the human being is engaged for nothing in the great cities and industrial towns. There are so many things manufactured by human energy, but they are all meant for sense enjoyment and not for getting out of material bondage. And after working hard during the daytime, a tired man either sleeps or engages in sex habits at night. That is the program of materialistic, civilized life for the less intelligent. Therefore they are designated herein as lazy, unfortunate, and short-lived. Text 10. Sutta Goswami said, while Maharaj Parīkṣit was residing in the capital of the Kuru Empire, the symptoms of the age of Kali began to infiltrate within the jurisdiction of his state. When he learned about this, he did not think the matter very palatable. This did, however, give him a chance to fight. He took up his bow and arrows and prepared himself for military activities. Purport. The state administration of Maharaj Parīkṣit was so perfect that he was sitting in his capital peacefully. But he got the news that the symptoms of the age of Kali had already infiltrated into the jurisdiction of his state, and he did not like this news. What are the symptoms of the age of Kali? They are 1. Illicit connection with women. 2. Indulgence in meat eating. 3. Intoxication. And 4. Taking pleasure in gambling. The age of Kali literally means the age of quarrel, and the above mentioned 4 symptoms in human society are the root causes for all kinds of quarrel. Maharaj Parīkṣit heard that some of the people of the state had already taken to those symptoms, and he wanted to take immediate steps against such causes of unrest. This means that at least up to the regime of Maharaj Parīkṣit, such symptoms of public life were practically unknown, and as soon as they were slightly detected, he wanted to root them out. The news was not palatable for him, but in a way it was, because Maharaj Parīkṣit got a chance to fight. There was no need to fight with small states, because everyone was peacefully under his subordination. But the Kali Yuga miscreants gave his fighting spirit a chance for exhibition. A perfect Kshatriya king is always jubilant as soon as he gets a chance to fight, just as a sportsman is eager when there is a chance for a sporting match. It is no argument that in the Kali Yuga, it is no argument that in the age of Kali, such symptoms are predestined. If so, then why was there preparation for rooting out such symptoms? Such arguments are offered by lazy and unfortunate men. In the rainy season, rain is predestined, and yet people take precautions to protect themselves. Similarly, in the age of Kali, the symptoms as above mentioned are sure to infiltrate into social life. But it is the duty of the state to save the citizens from the association of the agents of the age of Kali. Maharaj Parīkṣit wanted to punish the miscreants, indulging in the symptoms of Kali, and thus save the innocent citizens who were pure in habit by culture of religion. It is the duty of the king to give such protection, and Maharaj Parīkṣit was perfectly right when he prepared himself to fight. Text 11. Maharaj Parīkṣit sat on a chariot drawn by black horses. His flag was marked with the sign of a lion. Being so decorated and surrounded by charioteers, cavalry, elephants, and infantry soldiers, he left the capital to conquer in all directions. Purport. Maharaj Parīkṣit is distinguished from his grandfather Arjuna for black horses pulling his chariot instead of white horses. He marked his flag with the insignia of a lion, and his grandfather marked his with the insignia of Hanumanji. A royal procession like that of Maharaj Parīkṣit, surrounded by well-decorated chariots, cavalry, elephants, infantry, and band, is not only pleasing to the eyes, but also indicative of a civilization that is ascetic, even on the fighting front. Text 12. Maharaj Parīkṣit then conquered all parts of the earthly planet, Bhadrashva, Ketumala, Bharata, and the northern Kuru, Kimpurusha, and so on, and extracted tributes from their respective rulers. Purport. Bhadrashva is a tract of land near Meru Parvata, and it extends from Gandhamadana Parvata to the saltwater ocean. There is a description of this Varsha in the Mahabharata, Bhishma Parva, 7:14 through 18. The description was narrated by Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. Maharaj Yudhishthira also conquered this Varsha, and thus the province was included within the jurisdiction of his empire. Maharaj Parīkṣit was formally declared to be the emperor of all lands ruled by his grandfather, but still he had to establish his supremacy while he was out of his capital to exact tribute from such states. Ketumala, the earth planet, is divided into 7 dvipas and by 7 oceans, and the central dvipa is called Jambudvip, is divided into 9 varshas, or parts, by 8 huge mountains. Bharatvarsha is one of the above-mentioned 9 varshas, and Ketumala is also described as one of the above varshas. It is said that in Ketumala Varsha, women are the most beautiful. This Varsha was conquered by Arjuna also. A description of this part of the world is available in the Mahabharata Sabhaparva 28:6. It is said that this part of the world is situated on the western side of the Meru Parvata, and inhabitants of this province used to live up to 10,000 years. Bhishma Parva 6:31. Human beings living in this part of the globe are of golden color, and the women resemble the angels of heaven. The inhabitants are free from all kinds of diseases and grief. Bharatvarsha. This part of the world is also one of the 9 varshas of the Jambudvip. A description of Bharatvarsha is given in the Mahabharata, Bhishma Parva, chapters 9 and 10. In the center of Jambudvip is Ilavritivarsha, and south of Ilavritivarsha is Harivarsha. The description of these varshas is given in the Mahabharata, Sabhaparva 28:7 and 8, as follows. It is mentioned here that the women in both these varshas are beautiful, and some of them are equal to the apsaras, or heavenly women. Uttarakuru. According to Vedic geography, the northernmost portion of Jambudvip is called Uttarakurabars. Uttarakurubarsha. It is surrounded by the saltwater ocean from 3 sides and divided from Hiranmaya Varsha by Shringavan mountain. Kimpurusha Varsha. It is stated to be north of the great Himalaya mountain, which is 80,000 miles in length and height, and which covers 16,000 miles in width. These parts of the world were also conquered by Arjuna. Sabhaparva 28:1 and 2. The Kimpurushas are descendants of a daughter of Daksha. When Maharaj Yudhishthira performed a horse sacrifice, yajna, the inhabitants of these countries were also present to take part in the festival, and they paid tributes to the emperor. This part of the world is called Kimpurusha Varsha, or sometimes the Himalayan provinces, Himavan. It is said that Shukadeva Goswami was born in these Himalayan provinces, and that he came to Bharatvarsha after crossing the Himalayan countries. In other words, Maharaj Parīkṣit conquered all the world. He conquered all the continents, adjoining all the seas and oceans in all directions, namely the eastern, western, northern, and southern parts of the world. Texts 13 through 15. Wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Krsna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashwatthama. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vrishni and those of Pritha, due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king being very pleased with the singers of such glories, widened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to offer them very valuable necklaces and clothing. Purport. Kings and other great personalities of the state are presented with welcome addresses. This is a system from time immemorial, and Maharaj Parīkṣit, since he was one of the well-known emperors of the world, was also presented with addresses of welcome in all the parts of the world as he visited those places. The subject matter of those welcome addresses was Krishna. Krishna means Krishna and his eternal devotees, as the king means the king and his confidential associates. Krishna and his unalloyed devotees cannot be separated, and therefore glorifying the devotee means glorifying the Lord, and vice versa. Maharaj Parīkṣit would not have been glad to hear about the glories of his forefathers, like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna, had they not been connected with the acts of Lord Krishna. The Lord descends specifically to deliver his devotees. Paritranaya sadhunam, Bhagavad Gita 4:8. The devotees are glorified by the presence of the Lord because they cannot live for a moment without the presence of the Lord by his different energies. The Lord is present for the devotee by his acts and glories, and therefore Maharaj Parīkṣit felt the presence of the Lord. And when he was glorified for his acts, especially his saving Maharaj Parīkṣit in the womb of his mother, the devotees of the Lord are in the womb of his mother. I'll read that again. The Lord is present for the devotee by his acts and glories, and therefore Maharaj Parīkṣit felt the presence of the Lord when he was glorified for his acts, especially his saving Maharaj Parīkṣit in the womb of his mother. The devotees of the Lord are never in danger, but in the material world, which is full of dangers at every step, the devotees are apparently placed into dangerous positions, and when they are saved by the Lord is glorified. Lord Krishna would not have been glorified as the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita had his devotees, like the Pandavas, not been entangled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. All such acts of the Lord were mentioned in the addresses of welcome, and Maharaj Parīkṣit, in full satisfaction, rewarded those who presented such addresses. The difference between the presentation of welcome addresses today and in those days is that formerly the welcome addresses were presented to a person like Maharaj Parīkṣit. The welcome addresses were full of facts and figures, and those who presented such addresses were generously awarded, whereas in the present days the welcome addresses are presented not always with factual statements, but to please the post holder, and often they are full of flattering lies. And rarely are those who present such welcome addresses rewarded by the poor receiver. Text Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 16. Maharaj Parīkṣit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, and so on, according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parīkṣit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Purport. Lord Krishna is everything to the unalloyed devotees, like the Pandavas. The Lord was for them the Supreme Lord, the spiritual master, the worshipable deity, the guide, the chariot driver, the friend, the servant, the messenger, and everything they could conceive of. And thus the Lord also reciprocated the feelings of the Pandavas. Maharaj Parīkṣit, as a pure devotee of the Lord, could appreciate the Lord's transcendental reciprocation of the feelings of his devotees, and thus he himself also was overwhelmed with the dealings of the Lord. Simply by appreciating the dealings of the Lord with his pure devotees, one can attain salvation. The Lord's dealings with his devotees appear to be ordinary human dealings, but one who knows them in truth becomes at once eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord, and by such unalloyed determination they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. Text 17. Now you may hear from me of what happened not far from Maharaj Parīkṣit while he was passing his days, hearing of the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in thought of them. Text 18. The personality of religious principles, Dharma, was wandering about in the form of a bull, and he met the personality of the earth in the form of a cow, who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus Dharma questioned the earth as follows. Purport. The bull is the emblem of the moral principle, and the cow is the representative of the earth. When the bull and the cow are in a joyful mood, it is to be understood that the people of the world are also in a joyful mood. The reason is that the bull helps production of grains in the agricultural field, and the cow delivers milk, the miracle of aggregate food values. The human society, therefore, maintains these two important animals very carefully, so that they can wander everywhere in cheerfulness. But at the present moment, in this age of Kali, both the bull and the cow are now being slaughtered and eaten up as foodstuff by a class of men who do not know the Brahminical culture. The bull and the cow can be protected for the good of all human society, simply by the spreading of Brahminical culture as the topmost perfection of all cultural affairs. By advancement of such culture, the morale of society is properly maintained, and so peace and prosperity are also attained without extraneous effort. When Brahminical culture deteriorates, the cow and bull are mistreated, and the resultant actions are prominent by the following symptoms. Text 19. Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked, "Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place?" Purport. The people of the world in this age of Kali are always full of anxieties. Everyone is diseased with some kind of ailment. From the very faces of the people of this age, one can find out the index of the mind. Everyone feels the absence of his relative who is away from home. The particular symptom of the age of Kali is that no family is now blessed to live together. To earn a livelihood, the father lives at a place far away from the son, or the wife lives far away from the husband, and so on. There are sufferings from internal diseases, separation from those near and dear, and anxieties for maintaining the status quo. These are but some important factors which make the people of this age always unhappy. Text 20. I have lost 3 of my legs, and am now standing on one only. Are you lamenting for my state of existence? Or are you in great anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat-eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings, because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for the living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought? Purport. With the progress of the age of Kali, 4 things particularly, namely the duration of life, mercy, the power of recollection, and moral or religious principles, will gradually diminish. Since Dharma, or the principles of religion, would be lost in the proportion of 3 out of 4, the symbolic bull was standing on one leg only. When 3/4 of the population of the whole world become irreligious, the situation is converted into hell for the animals. In the age of Kali, godless civilizations will create so many so-called religious societies in which the personality of Godhead will be directly or indirectly defied. And thus, faithless societies of men will make the world uninhabitable for the saner section of people. There are gradations of human beings in terms of proportionate faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first-class faithful men are the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas, then the Kshatriyas, then the Vaishyas, then the Shudras, then the Mlechas, the Yavanas, and at last the Chandalas. The degradation of the human instinct begins from the Mlechas, and the Chandala state of life is the last word in human degradation. All of the above terms mentioned in the Vedic literatures are never meant for any particular community or birth. They are different qualifications of human beings in general. There is no question of birthright or community. One can acquire the respective qualifications by one's own efforts, and thus the son of a Vaishnava can become a Mlecha, or the son of a Chandala can become more than a Brahmana, all in terms of their association and intimate relation with the Supreme Lord. The meat-eaters are generally called Mlechas, but all meat-eaters are not Mlechas. Those who accept meat in terms of scriptural injunctions are not Mlechas, but those who accept meat without restriction are called Mlechas. Beef is forbidden in the scriptures, and the bulls and cows are offered special protection by followers of the Vedas. But in this age of Kali, people will exploit the body of the bull and the cow as they like, and thus they will invite sufferings of various types. The people in this age will not perform any sacrifice. The Mlecha population will care very little for performances of sacrifices, although performance of sacrifice is essential for persons who are materially engaged in sense enjoyment. In the Bhagavad Gita, performance of sacrifices is strongly recommended. Bhagavad Gita 3:14-16. The living beings are created by the Creator, Brahma, just to maintain the created living beings as they progress toward the path back to Godhead. The system of performing sacrifice is also created by him. The system is that living beings live on the produce of grains and vegetables, and by eating such foodstuff, they get vital power of the body in the shape of blood and semen. And from blood and semen, one living being is able to create other living beings. But the production of grains, grass, and so on becomes possible by rain, and this rain is made to shower properly by performance of recommended sacrifices. Such sacrifices are directed by the rites of the Vedas, namely Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. In the Manusmriti, it is recommended that by offerings of sacrifice on the altar of the fire, the sun god is pleased. When the sun god is pleased, he properly collects water from the sea, and thus sufficient clouds collect on the horizon and rain falls. After sufficient rain falls, there is sufficient production of food grain for all men and animals, and thus there is energy in the living beings for progressive activity. The Mlechas, however, make plans to install slaughterhouses for killing bulls and cows, along with other animals, thinking that they will prosper by increasing the number of factories and live on animal food without caring for performance of sacrifices and production of food grain. But they must know that for the animals they must produce grass, and that for themselves they must produce vegetables, because they cannot live on animal food alone. And to produce grass and vegetables, they require sufficient rain. Therefore, they have to depend ultimately on the mercy of the demigods, like the sun god, Indra, Chandra, and such demigods must be satisfied by performances of sacrifice. This material world is a sort of prison house, as we have several times mentioned. The demigods are the servants of the Lord, who see to the proper upkeep of the prison house. These demigods want to see that the rebellious living beings who want to survive faithlessly are gradually turned towards the supreme power of the Lord. Therefore, the system of offering sacrifice is recommended in the scriptures. The materialistic men want to work hard and enjoy fruitive results for sense enjoyment. Thus, they are committing many types of sins at every step of life. Those, however, who are consciously engaged in the devotional service of the Lord are transcendental to all varieties of sin and virtue. Their activities are free from the contamination of the three modes of material nature. For the devotees, there is no need for performance of prescribed sacrifices, because the very life of the devotee is a symbol of sacrifice. But persons who are engaged in fruitive activities for sense enjoyment must perform the prescribed sacrifices, because that is the only means to get free from the reaction of all sins committed by fruitive workers. Sacrifice is the means for counteracting such accumulated sins. The demigods are pleased when such sacrifices are performed, just as prison officers are satisfied when the prisoners are turned into law-abiding citizens. Lord Chaitanya, however, has recommended only one yajna, or sacrifice, called the Sankirtan yajna, the chanting of Hare Krishna, in which everyone can take part. Thus, both devotees and fruitive workers can derive equal benefit from the performances of Sankirtan Yajna. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. What a purport. All right, we'll stop there tonight for the reading. We're up to 7:55 already. And we'll start tomorrow with text 21. All right, Hare Krishna. We're just waiting here in anticipation of the wonderful reflections from the assembled sages so that we can relish the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam increasingly. Hare Krishna.
First is from Rati Manjari.
Hare Krishna, Rati Manjari.
Jai Guru Maharaj, happy to join you on your transcendental journey. We have all become addicted.
Hare Krishna. Well, the feeling is mutual. I'm also addicted. Thank you very much. We heard in the very beginning of what we read today, didn't we? The result of reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We taste real nectar. Hare Krishna.
From Gopakanya.
Haribol Gopakanya.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, and all assembled sages. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Ho Maharaj for your daily reading service to Srila Prabhupada's books.
Hare Krishna. Haribol. Thank you.
And this is from Stefano.
Haribol Stefano.
Hare Krishna. Some days ago you said that in the spiritual world there is no time and space. As far as the space is concerned, can you elaborate this concept a little more?
Space is one of the 8 material energies which create the material existence. The 8 material energies are described in the Bhagavad Gita in the 7th chapter, verses 3 and 4, or 4 or 5. Anyway, Bhumirapo Nilo Vayu, Kammano, Buddhir Evacha, Ahankara Itiyame, Bina Prakriti Rashtata. So, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Ether means space. So, by the transformation of the modes of nature, all of these external energies are created, and the space is the energy that accommodates the other energies. And all the other energies move inside this space. In the spiritual world, there is no space. There is no contained environment. It's free. There's no boundaries. And the forms are rather than being created by goodness, passion, and ignorance, or created by Sat, Chit, and Ananda, or eternity, knowledge, and bliss. In other words, just like our forms are made of earth and water and fire and air and take up a certain space, in the spiritual world, all the forms are made of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Now this doesn't make any sense to the material mind and the material intelligence. So you can't understand it by trying to figure it out, how that works. But it works. It works. And each one of us as a living being is made of those 3 same spiritual energies: eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And therefore, every single one of us doesn't want to die. Is it true? Yep. We are all trying to know everything. Therefore, we have the latest technological advancement, the internet, which allows people to know all kinds of things by questioning Siri or somebody, Alexa or somebody. And everybody's trying to be happy. But in the material world, because it's contained in time and space, it doesn't work. The senses cannot become happy The soul cannot become happy in the material world because all of the forms that we are coming in contact with to be happy are temporary. And our own form is temporary. But we are not temporary. We have that experience, each one of us, in a lifetime. And if you've lived a little longer, like yours truly, you've seen a lot of things. But you've also seen a lot of forms change. And your present body is changed to the point where it can't do the same things. It can't jump and run and do certain things that all of us love to do from childhood. But we're the same person. Every single one of us knows it. Every language in the world uses the single possessive pronoun when we describe our forms. My body, my heart, my hands, my mind, my intelligence. Who I am, who am I? We're acknowledging by the language every single day the concepts that we are different than the body, different than the mind, different than the intelligence. So that is spiritual energy. And it does not change. It cannot be cut by weapons. It cannot be burned by fire. It cannot be wet by water. It cannot be withered by the wind. Nainam chantini chishtani, nainam dahati pavagaha, nachainam kladiyantyapo, nashoshayati marata. So these are the axiomatic truths given to us by the Lord Himself in the Bhagavad Gita that explain what's going on here. And if you learn this Gita carefully and look at the world and look at yourself through the lens of this knowledge, then you will see all these things for yourself. Anyway, that's something. I got carried away, sorry. Hare Krishna.
From Sudevi Dasi.
Yes, Sudevi Dasi.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, one more day of your precious association. Much appreciation. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
We made it to another day, Sudevi Dasi. Hare Krishna. And they're going faster and faster, no?
Stefano says, amazing explanation. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
From Gaurachandra Das.
Yes, Gaurachandra, Hare Krishna.
He says, thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
And Lalita Saki.
Lalita Saki, Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.
And from Daitari Hari.
Daitya Hari Hari, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. That was a wonderful reading tonight.
Oh, super.
The point about protecting cows and Brahminical culture being fundamental to the prosperity of civilization. It seems quite simple compared to the contrived madness in the form of different complicated economic policies and bureaucratic laws we see in the world today.
Absolutely. Well put, I might add. Your reflections are also well conceived and well articulated. Thank you.
From Gauranga Gopal.
Haribo. Gauranga Gopal, are you back from France?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. In the purport of verse 19, Srila Prabhupada says, quote, the people of the world in this age of Kali are always full of anxieties. Everyone is diseased with some kind of ailment. From the very faces of the people of this age, one can find out the index of the mind. Unquote. I can definitely relate to the diseased state that we are all put under in this age. There is never a moment when the body or the mind doesn't bother with some trouble. If no physical disease, then there will be stress, anxiety, depression. And Prabhupada is right. We can just read so easily on everyone's face the struggle everyone is under. I just came back from France, and people there are very good in letting you know when something isn't right by complaining about it. So no need to look at the faces. We can just hear about it all the time. Such a heavy atmosphere.
Yes, every country has different characteristics which are, they're known by. The French are one, and the Germans another, the Americans are another, the British are another, Indians are another. They all have particular modes of nature, combinations of particular modes of nature which give the people that live there different characteristics. We were hearing about it today, even in the pure state, and when Bharatvarsha and Jambudvip were purely maintained and the residents are feeling happier than they are today. They were still had their specific characteristics in the different varshas and the different places where they live, So that's part of the varieties of material existence. The reflections of the varieties of the spiritual world. There are varieties everywhere. Nowhere is there a void. Nowhere is there oneness without any variety. Nowhere. You can look and look. It's all in the imagination. The imagination filled with fear, trying to avoid relationships and interactions and varieties, loving exchanges, because they're all painful in the material world. But nowhere can you find such a thing. It's a myth, this oneness business. Oneness means agreement to live in harmony with others, in joyful Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
It's from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Tonight I noted the connection between the four sinful activities are described as being the cause of quarrel. That is why we live in the age of quarrel. I never thought of that connection, but it makes a lot of sense. If I may ask a question not directly related to tonight's reading, I have heard that in the spiritual world everything is expanding, never diminishing. Lord Krishna's qualities are also ever expanding. Does that also mean that Krishna's love for us is also ever increasing?
Yes. And we can't understand it here because we don't have any love. We don't know what it is. Here, love means I'll scratch your back and you'll scratch my back. And as soon as one stops scratching, they want to go away. It's all for sense gratification. All the relationships, whether they be business or familial or friendship or whatever, they're all based on, liking to do the same kinds of things that the other person likes to do. In other words, if a person stops liking to do what you like to do, then he's no longer your friend. So there's no love in the material world. That's the problem. But we want loving relationships. We want it, and therefore we're trying. But we're caught in this ever-changing a world of ever-changing forms and of death. In the heavenly planets, where the lifetimes are very long, they look down at the earth and they see this is Martyaloka. These people are always dying. Every minute somebody's dying. This is the place called Martyaloka. Just like you can name a place, the Malayan Hills is famous because there's a lot of sandalwood trees in it, you know? And like that, a place can be named after the predominant feature of that place. So we're living in the material world that's called Martyaloka, especially on the earth. All we do is die. So why would we want to live in a place like this? So without this knowledge, without the knowledge that comes from the spiritual world and through spiritual authority, you can't know about these things. And therefore all you can do is suffer, one degree or another. Maybe some less, some more, some for longer, some for shorter. But the essence is the same. And as Prabhupada pointed out, and I think that Haridas pointed out, or maybe it was Guranga, the faces of the people. You can see it written on their faces. They're in anxiety, every single one of them. They're in fear. They don't know what's going to happen. Now the prices are going up. The cost of living is going up. So they make the same amount of money, they can't get anything. And everybody is in one form or another agitated by all these uncontrolled changes. You can't control them. Laws of nature in the material world are very strict. They can't be changed. The material scientists are trying, but it's not working. Therefore, the only solution is to go back to the spiritual world where there is ever-increasing bliss, where there is no time and space. If you enjoy something, doing something, or tasting something, then you can rerun and do it again, right on the spot. These things are inconceivable. We can't really understand them completely. We'll only be able to understand it completely when we go back home, back to Godhead. So it's a science, there's an experiment, there's a textbook, there's a result, tangible results. And the result of practicing this spiritual science is that at the time of death, when we're forced to change, then we go back to Godhead. Revive our spirit, reawaken our spiritual body. Where we can perceive God directly, face to face. We no longer have to wonder, speculate, and be afraid because we don't know what's going to happen next. Hare Krishna. No birth, no disease, no old age, no death. Why wouldn't a person want to go there? Even if you can't prove it, you can't prove, the void. So why don't you try to go to the spiritual world? Why not? Hare Krishna. This is the crying need of the day, to preach these very basic principles of the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. Spiritual education.
This is from Rati Manjari.
Haribo Rati.
She says, that is nice to know, and what you say is so true. Sometimes when I preach or try to preach Krishna consciousness, I try to repeat Srila Prabhupada, but I feel sometimes that it sounds so negative. How do I avoid this? When you say these same points, it sounds so different.
Practice makes perfect. It sounds like that because our hearts are not purified yet. And so the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Krishna's name is Krishna. When you're associating with the name of Krishna, you're associating with Krishna. So in the beginning, we may chant because we like the musical sound. That's all right. But we're associated with Krishna's name. And just continue. until your heart is pure, and so that you can taste these things, and it will no longer sound harsh. It sounds harsh because we're rebellious. We came here, all of us, to this material world, rebelling against the authority of the Lord. And the material nature is, what is the word? It's giving us a chance to try to enjoy, but it's also giving the results in the form of distress and happiness, temporary happiness and distress. So there's nothing you can really yourself do except to surrender to Krishna. Therefore, Krishna explains the Gita, all these different philosophical points and ways of acting and thinking and feeling and willing. And at the end, he says, Sarva Dharma, give them all up and just surrender to me. Make me the goal of life. That's the end of Astanga Yoga. Matpadaha, make me the goal of life, Krishna says. Hare Krishna.
Mati Manjari says thank you. And yes, I am still like the fox who said the grapes are sour.
Okay. You have to give it up sometime. You're going to have to give it up when you leave the body. Why don't you give it up now? Hare Krishna. Keep hearing and explaining, and you will get it eventually. Only by Krishna's mercy can you taste these things. But you can't tell me that you don't taste these things, Rati. I know. I'm getting these videos you send me and these kirtans you're leading throughout Holland. Hare Krishna. Okay, it's time to end another... Wait, we have something?
She says, by your mercy and Krishna's mercy.
Hare Krishna. We are made of Krishna's mercy. Without Krishna's mercy, we are nothing. Thank you so much, everyone, again, for a very... It may be a little intense, this description of Kali Yuga, and how it came about, and how Maharaj Parīkṣit's dealing with it, and the naked truth of what the material Kali Yuga energy is. But it's what we need to to come to our senses. Like when people get intoxicated and a friend will dump a bucket of ice water on their head to sober them up, That's what this is like. Hearing the truth constantly, again and again. It's sobering. It's supposed to be sobering. So we won't be an illusion in a dream world, thinking we can actually enjoy here in this material world. So this was just a mistake. Next time it'll be better. Next time it'll be different. Thank you very much. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic. The sobering Shabda Brahma of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, especially the first canto. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.